How to implement AI is one challenge that they have, but there are so many different challenges. Internationalization, churn of people, new competition. So managers and leaders all the time have the strategic problems. And very often they see AI as an operational topic and don't see that the biggest lever currently for AI is actually on a strategic level.
Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined by one of our regulars. How many podcasts you've done now, Peter? But it's always nice to have you back. Peter Schopf is with us today. Welcome back.
Thanks a lot. I'm always glad to be back here.
Fantastic. And something unusual happened last week, Peter. We actually met each other in real life, which the opportunity doesn't occur too often, but we actually met at Hannover Fair, or Hannover Messe, I should say. So we're going to start the conversation there, sort of discussing what something that stands out in your mind, first of all, about Hannover for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always great to be there. Yeah? So I've been there in the past many times because we are working with Siemens. Siemens is one of the biggest, or if probably very, very much the biggest company at site with the biggest booth. And it's always very exciting to see it. Also to meet former colleagues there, it's really great. But also, I mean, it's the biggest industrial fair worldwide. Yeah? So there you see the trends, there you see relevant companies and how they position themselves. Lots of possibilities. And I've been there also to record podcasts. Yeah, as I might have told you before, I'm also now an interim podcast host talking about IoT use cases. So also what we have discussed there might be quite interesting. There was like this podcast bus, like a Mercedes bus, and you could shut it down and sit 4 people inside in the back. I was very comfortable with the microphones. And then we also discussed industrial trends and podcast, like IoT topics. And there were also some political acts, like Friedrich Merz, the Bundeschancellor of Germany, was there, but also a lot of CEOs, Roland Busch from Siemens and from SAP and Telekom and Rheinmetall. Also, that led to a couple of protests on site and also quite interesting other things. What I realized that maybe stands out is that human robots has had the big spot. Yeah, the robotic community has been there always. But now you see a lot of human robots, and that has been much more than before. And they can do quite exciting things, hand dexterity and things like that. So that's definitely a trend that is picking up. While all the other things rather are a little bit less. I had the impression that there were less companies on site presenting their newest trends.
Yeah, I mean, for me, very much the same. Like I said to you before the chat, I took the opportunity to sort of look around. I mean, it's easy to be sort of looking at all the amazing stuff going on at Siemens, and like I've said to others as well, the stand, although slightly biased, the CPG exhibit and everything just looked really, really great, really stood out, I think. But it was interesting to get out the perspective. I did go and see the humanoids. I can't remember which hall it was, but they were doing Tai Chi when I was there, so much better than I can do it, I'm sure. So that was interesting. But it's interesting that, and again, what I'm hearing, about AI shifting towards more, lots of AI talk, but a lot of it's shifting towards these humanoids and how they can be empowered. I don't know if that's what you're feeling as well, but that's like the next frontier, it feels, for AI, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, calling that embodied AI, so that suddenly AI gets a body, however that looks like. It can be all kinds of robot forms, but the humanoids are obviously kind of closest to our heart and most exciting, when you see suddenly something like that walking around and doing stuff. So that's going to be a trend for sure. And I can't wait until they are finally there to kind of iron my shirts and the laundry and things like that. But there's still a way to go. Yeah, still, I mean, that's a trend we definitely will see growing. And I mean, other things which we discussed, for example, in these podcasts there on site, it was quite nice to have companies there. So we talked, for example, to one company, it's a recurrent theme, which is always in discussion, IT-OT integration. So probably we talked about that before as well, because that's such an obvious challenge many companies face. On the one hand side, they have the OT environment, the shop floor, and everything needs to be very stable, very secure. And then you have the IT environment where you have all kind of new updates, releases, and a very dynamic environment, test beds where you can test things and then deploy the things which are not there yet most of the time in an OT environment. And this, how that will grow together so that you have the benefits of both, that's quite exciting to talk about. And so there are lots of different strategies and challenges around that. Maybe if you like, we can also go a little bit into that direction.
Yeah, no, let's do it. Because like I said, it's been a debate that's been around for a long time. So I'm just wondering, has it, from your point of view, being in the industry for so long, have you seen any changes or where we are now to where we were 5 years ago? I'm sure like any industry or any topic, it's sort of moved on significantly.
Yeah, it kind of moved on, but it's still the same topics for quite some time now. It's quite amazing. So this podcast, I'm kind of the interim host. They are called IoT use case. Yeah, so if listeners listen in and are interested around it, listen in. Yeah, it's quite special, I would say, specific around certain topics, but still interesting to listen to. And there's also a community, and we discussed also on a more broader scale, what are the challenges around implementation? Also, lots of different implementation companies and the people representing them, and discussing the topics. And for example, these typical things which we have been discussing for a long time. It's very complex and challenging to access data and to bring the data from the shop floor, for example, to IT tools. And this has been there. The 8 years ago when I started having these conversations, and it's still there. And there are a lot of different, now strategies to address that, and more strategies. For example, the Speranet, for example, what they do, they collect data directly from the sensor and pass by the whole OT environment directly to the IT. And so they select only very specific data from selected sensors and don't go via the SPC, which would be the normal way, that the PLC, and maybe via the MES, and then at some point in time to the IT, where you have your dashboards, where you have your overview of what is going on. So that might be a strategy, and passing by, basically avoiding the complicated environment. Other strategies are to bring IT topics to the shop floor, like the container management. We had a podcast at the Hannover Fair with Portainer and Vago, and they apply that. So the container management, container is a software environment, which is stable and which you can deploy then on different devices. And this is like one of the benefits from the IT, which could be then used to the OT, also running maybe AI models and else. Yeah, but that's already then now the next challenging environment is how to run AI models on scale, on site, especially Gen AI, generative AI, and classical machine learning is very often mixed in that industrial environment. We can talk about that as well later on. But also to wrap up this exchange between the application companies in this IoT use case network, one challenge is communication. That was actually something which was very obvious. Yeah, especially at the beginning, everybody was kind of letting out their frustration around their own companies, partially because they have a certain role in their companies. And sometimes the companies may be a machine builder or maybe a company that has a large shop floor environment. Sometimes the upper levels don't understand why they should invest so much money in data transparency, for example, when it's so complicated. And this we addressed, and there also AI might play a big role. We did a test that we took like a fictive person, like a plant manager or COO, and then we created a story exactly for them. Because what is the challenge? The challenge is that they are technical guys, and very smart and clever technical guys, but then now explain it to a manager. And the managers have completely different perception, way of communicating. And to bridge that gap, basically from real technical challenges and a good technical implementation way, what makes sense, but to translate that to kind of a C-level environment. And there, I think AI can help a lot.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot to unpick there. I mean, one thing you mentioned a little bit earlier on was about the challenges of implementation as well. So maybe we could dive into that a little bit. What sort of challenges are you seeing in that area?
Yeah, I mean, IT/OT, if we take a broader stance, these are exactly these, to access the data. Then semantic are an issue. If you get the data, you then need to very often describe exactly which data point means. And that is very often very different. So if you have a heterogeneous environment, to have a coherent semantic that you can use then to aggregate different machines and data from different environments. That's challenging. And then also identifying the right use case that brings value at the beginning, not only at the end. These are difficult things and communication. But when we talk about AI, which is obviously my main topic, I've kind of, except for this interim podcast, I'm more in the AI, Gen AI, especially environment for organizational development. And the thing is now, interesting discussion, how can Gen AI not only be used for organizational development, but in the shop floor? And there, of course, you have certain challenges, like you don't want to get your data out into any kind of cloud system. Not always, it depends on what kind of data. So can you host local models? These models are big, different to classical machine learning, where you have small models. You can deploy them locally easily if they are trained. That's the challenging part, if you have them trained. But the challenging part around Gen AI is that these models are already quite big. And they're smaller sizes as well. But then, deploy them locally. The container environment, for example, could work for that. And what are the use cases? That I think is really interesting to discuss as well, because use cases for Gen AI differ to the classical AI significantly. The classical AI is like prediction, any kind of predictive maintenance or things like that. This works quite nicely. Or quality management, that you scan data and if there's a bad device or bad product, you recognize that and so quality checks. But Gen AI is different. Gen AI is like with talking and text based. So what are use cases in an industrial environment? And I've been collecting a little bit, just on top of my head. What was interesting is, for example, documentation. Very often, for example, machines are delivered to different customers, and you have thousands of machines. But for a machine builder to document each machine that you build in a way that it's then up to date with really what leaves the company grounds, that is quite good, because documentation is always challenging, and this AI does it very well, Gen AI. Or, for example, when you have any kind of error messages, to translate them in what does that mean and what could I do now and things like this. There's also Gen AI quite strong. Or just the potentially most simple application is if you have a manual and you have any kind of issue and you ask the manual, you put the manual in an assistant, AI assistant, and you can just ask the AI assistant around certain topics. So that are like 3 exemplary use cases of Gen AI on the shop floor.
Yeah, and that these were quite a simple way to get started. But do you find, Peter, that with all the sort of buzz around AI and generative AI, and I think you're right to separate the traditional AI and generative AI because it all gets bundled into one. But are organisations thinking more ambitiously? Because those are great use cases, and I wouldn't want to call them basic, but there's a lot more you can do, right? But,
absolutely. That's also a very strong point I have. So on the one hand side, there are like two main misunderstandings. One is what we just discussed, classical AI models mixed up with Gen AI models, which are really a different world. You must say they should really own different names in that term. And then also operational use cases and strategic use cases. And what do I mean with that? What I described just right now with documentation and error messages and else, these are all operational use cases. And for example, we had a great project now with E.ON, the energy company, with an operational use case. And we now have it officially basically confirmed that we save in that specific task 50% of the time. That's great. So because the other day I had a very interesting discussion with the CEO of a mid-sized company. We can get to that. And I was able to say, hey, we have basically proof that it's working on an operational level. But as great that is, and I could now go out and say, shout around, we have a proof point and it's working and the users are happy, really happy about it. So we did a lot of things right. But it's an operational part, and the people there, they don't earn too much money, and saving 50% on part of their work, it's a nice business case, but it's actually, when you look at the strategic level where you have all the managers highly paid, and also the consultants that come in, highly paid, and things like program management. Yeah, also digitalization. Yeah, how to implement AI is one challenge that they have, but there are so many different challenges. Yeah, internationalization, churn of people, new competition. So managers and leaders all the time have the strategic problems, and very often they see AI as an operational topic and don't see that the biggest lever currently for AI is actually on a strategic level. And I'm very surprised around that, because I mean we have now this methodology developed, strategic prompting, and it works really good. So the feedback we get, for example, the other day we had it just last week with the chair, head of chair, like from a board, the chair of the board, yeah, and we did a workshop one day with two topics, and one topic he said afterwards, that was so amazing. There's a team in the bank working since month now on that topic, and we've been creating a better result together in half a day than they have created in months. Yeah? And this is something where really there is so much more value, yeah, because it's on a strategic level with higher paid people, and I'm completely flabbergasted that this is not yet all over the place. Yeah, but maybe also because the consultants, they have a lot to lose, and because suddenly these huge consulting projects, you can do them in half the time of quarter of the time. And this might be the reason why this is not yet very widely known.
So yeah, and yeah, I sort of agree with your reasoning there. So how do we? I say we. That's good. It's like a broader industry thing. How do we bring it up to the strategy table? Because maybe part of it maybe is it's an easy use case to measure, isn't it? You the case you gave before. You upload a document, you can ask questions. That saves you time. That's a nice easy thing to get started and do. But I guess strategic, what sort of the barriers, I guess I'm asking, to showing that huge value that's there on the table if someone chooses to grasp it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of it is perception, yeah, because one image I show in my also keynotes and workshops is like elderly people, experienced workers on the one hand side, and younger people on the other side, and ask them, hey, who is better at prompting? And many think like AI, well, you need to be kind of a digital native, one of the young guys coming from university. But if you understand that the quality of AI output from Gen AI is the context, how much context you can provide in terms of what are the barriers you need to consider, what are the targets we have, where are conflicting views. The better and the more context you can provide, the better the quality of the concept will be, which comes out. Yeah, and this obviously is higher on the side of the experienced, of the elderly employees and managers, but they don't know. Yeah, they think still it's kind of a topic of digital natives, and somebody else needs to take care of that. So it's on the one hand side, it's training, and therefore we offer also trainings in that context, and then experience. And because when you only are used to using AI like Google, yeah, kind of you put in some words and something comes back, then obviously there's a big way to go to understand that you can go step by step, multi-step approaches with different little tricks. It's not very complicated, yeah, but things like that you then reflect with the AI by letting the AI ask questions around the topic. And so I think what needs to be established is like a methodology which is accepted, like Lean, Six Sigma, and else. Yeah, all these methodologies which are now table stakes. Yeah, everybody uses them, but has not yet been established for strategic prompting. Also, we have it, but we are not yet well known. Yeah, so that means it's all about like showing people, convincing, and then being recommended to others to continue like that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, because we have talked about strategic prompting before, and is that a phrase that originates from you, Peter? Or is it an industry term? By the sound of it, it's something that's not widely used, from what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it's true. I think I came up with it. I haven't made a search yet. I should probably, if somebody else uses it. I mean, it's so close and understandable that I'm sure somebody else uses it as well. But yeah, we kind of framed that. But what I realized is that still people have kind of this challenge of operational versus strategic, yeah, to understand what's the difference. While some say immediately, yeah, right. I mean, I always do only operational prompting. I never use it for strategic, complex topics. Others might say, well, no, I ask it once in a while for like, give me a plan. Isn't that strategic prompting already? And it's part of it. Yeah. So there's often a definition of what is a strategic problem, because what we say is also bring your strategic problem, which you have anyway. And when we solve it together, so you learn something and we solve it quicker and in a higher quality. And this is something very powerful. But yeah, it's kind of to have it experienced and then, well, the name so far, I haven't heard anything else which goes into that direction. Therefore, that's why I'm still also surprised that it's not broader used.
So it's interesting. We're talking about strategic prompting here, and just going back again to the operational like value of generative AI as well. But I guess is there an operational prompting as well? You know, to counterbalance it. I know we're talking about that. That's maybe the starting point, but you know, is that, can we consider that side of it as well?
Sure, and this is what most people do. Yeah, operational prompting is like to do small tasks where you have a direct output, a direct result. Yeah, meaning, for example, I want to reframe an email, so I put in an email as ask, please write it for me or write it differently, and I get the direct result, which I can then use. Or documentation, what we taught before. Yeah, so please document based on all the things we did, an easy to read and clean description of our machine, for example. Yeah, or please give me an answer to the error code I have here. What does it mean? And what do I need to do? Things like this, direct result, direct answer. And this is working better and better. Yeah, the problem before with operational prompting and operational topics was hallucination, which is still a challenge. Yeah, you need to be, in most operational topics, you need to be absolutely sure that it's right. Yeah, you cannot give something to customers, for example, if there's a doubt that there might be mistakes inside, where the AI hallucinates. So operational topics are important still, but they're most often even more challenging, more difficult to implement. While on the strategic side, it's kind of like a counterpart, a coach, an inspiration provider. Yeah, you will definitely, because it's strategic, you will definitely read the output and just use what is good and kind of disregard or change what is not good. So having that, their hallucination is not an issue. It's a feature. Yeah, it's providing new ideas basically, and that's the difference, I think. And there's so many little tricks that you can put inside, and where people are quite amazed. And that starts from the very beginning. Some people are amazed that you can change between like a fast model and a thinking model. Yeah, they don't even know the difference. If you have used thinking models, you're in a completely different ballpark. Yeah, it's kind of, very often I ask in my trainings, like, have you used, for example, thinking models, reasoning models on purpose? And if they have not, yeah, I say, well, congratulations. Tomorrow you will play in a different league in terms of your AI output. Or, for example, deep research. Some people don't know about deep research, which is called Researcher in Microsoft Copilot, for example. Again, congratulations if you haven't heard about that. Starting tomorrow, you will play in a different league, yeah, because having these research opportunities, it's much different than having Google search, for example. And so these little things, there you start. Yeah, some people know that for sure, and then it gets more complicated. Yeah, how you can integrate different context parts, yeah, internal context and external context and things like that, and really come to a nice output. It's not rocket science still. It's not engineering. How many say prompt engineering? I think that's a completely overrated term, and even makes people scared of prompting. Yeah, because engineering, it must be very complicated. So we like to use this working student example where we say, hey, consider the AI like a working student, and then you automatically communicate much differently. And it's all about good communication, and that's kind of the key. But also there are more things now, like agentic world and vibe coding, as there are many new things coming up. So it's really unbelievable how fast it moves.
No, absolutely. And I think the question I was going to ask, because maybe what you're describing, Peter, isn't necessarily like it's like standardizing prompts or having a library of set prompts. But what you said there now answers the question in a way. 'Cause you're saying it's all about a good conversation, right? So if you're talking to someone or if you're interviewing someone, for example, and you want it's going a certain direction or to do a certain thing, you'll sort of ask the right questions to do that. So I like that instead, rather than here's a library of prompts for your particular use case, off you go, kind of thing.
Yeah, the beginnings, so many like LinkedIn posts, for example, have been about, hey, comment and I give you my library of best prompts and else. Yeah, or some people even sold prompts or still sell assistants, yeah, which are prompted in a certain way. And that it's really funny. I've always thought, do I miss something? Do I miss out on something? Is that valuable what they do? But then I read through them and it's really, it never fit. It's never what I really needed in that point in time. Yeah, so it's the best prompt you will get from the AI. Describe the AI what you need to do and let it generate a prompt for another AI. And then you can read through the prompt, and that's normally a very good prompt directly tailored to whatever you need to do. Yeah, so I do that all the time. For example, for vibe coding as one of the topics where you just, with the prompt, you generate software. But now I'm not a software engineer, and software engineers have a certain way of thinking. They know what to address. Yeah, and so asking the AI to write the prompt for a vibe coding application, it's much more powerful. Yeah, I get great results from one shot, basically, which means on first try. So using AI as your prompt coach, that's kind of a very, also again, not a difficult trick, but it's good to know.
Yeah. So ask the AI to inform the AI to inform the AI is actually it's actually a good strategy. And like you said,
Yeah.
going back to what you said before as well, using it for different purposes like deep research and adapting it to what you're actually trying to achieve. It's not one size fits all, as it were.
Yeah, and benchmarking also. Yeah, let the AI rate what the AI produced and things like this. So these, it's proven, also scientifically proven, that you can improve the results significantly when you do that. Yeah, when it's not one shot, when you do multi-shot terms and also iterations and benchmarking, and you can have different AIs rating each other. So you then go into multi-agent systems now, which are quite interesting, and suddenly they become also agentic in a way that they can suddenly use your computer, for example, for things. So that's now a very exciting new space which is emerging more and more.
Absolutely. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. It's really fascinating, but we are coming towards the end. And one thing, I'm not sure we did. I looked back at our previous episode. It was around 3 months ago. So one thing we've introduced, Peter, is like a lightning round. For you, it's going to be slightly different because usually, it's very much free flowing. We decide sort of just before the call what we're going to talk about. So so it's going to be a bit more looser. But let's say we're going to talk again in 3 months' time. What do you think would have changed in that time? And I know things are changing all the time, but even 3 months seems like, it's maybe impossible to predict. But is there anything you can sort of, what do you think will change in 3 months or become more prominent, maybe?
I mean, one topic would be everybody will start using kind of agents, I think, because like this OpenClaw moment, yeah, where OpenClaw is this harness, AI harness, it's called, where you put a kind of a framework around an AI model, and this is collaborating with you and having memory, and that's kind of the key thing. That's going to be all over the place. Every company is developing that currently and has some kind of feature set already around that. All the big ones, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, and else. So this will be pushed into the market. And maybe as a second topic, memory, but which plays into that. That's currently a challenge. Yeah, you start fresh all the time. When you use a new chat, basically, then you start fresh. It's like a new working student each time that you start. And this memory, there are already some features where certain aspects, certain memories are saved about you if you want. But this will be that's one area everybody's working on. So AIs will have a much better understanding and memory of what you are going to do, and so can accompany you during a kind of complex projects and during your work life. I think that's like a 3 months topic. So this memory feature and agentic features around that. And I think there will be many more people doing strategic prompting, yeah, if they know or not, yeah, because it's so much value that I'm very sure that there's not only me picking that up, it will pop up all over the place. That the more people understand what is possible there, the more they will use it.
Yeah, and the memory side of things, Yeah, that's very interesting as well, because you don't, like you said, you don't necessarily want to start the conversation again. You want to sort of continue and to build upon, and so that was the word I was thinking. Context, right? That's the ultimate context, is
Exactly.
what you're doing, what you're thinking. So if you can provide that, you're going to get better results.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Fantastic. So we'll come back to that. 3 months' time, we'll talk. We'll talk again about other, and no doubt other things as well. But for today, yeah, I think we've come to the end. Time flies again very quickly, but it really is a pleasure talking to you, Peter, and sort of unpicking some of that stuff. Hopefully, we'll be able to meet again sometime in person again soon, but we'll certainly meet on the podcast again soon.
Looking forward to that now. Take care. Bye-bye.
Fantastic.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.